Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to the Dunstan Foundation. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Yes, unfortunately, the Lord Mayor couldn't be with us this morning, but she sends her warm regards, and she did ask me to pass on her apologies. I know that this is a really important project for her that she's really passionate about and is really wanting to be part of this really important conversation. But that being said, I'm really excited to be able to share Council's Adaptive Reuse City Housing Initiative. It's really one of Council's key initiatives that directly responds to the housing challenges we're all grappling with, and opening up a much needed stream of housing supply by repurposing underutilised buildings in our city. In the broader context of our housing system under pressure, it's really vital that we think creatively, act decisively and collaborate across sectors, and this is one program that's driving this forward. Further to Cliffy's lovely and warm welcome to country this morning. Oh, sorry. I'd also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on today, and to elders past and present. The Adaptive Reuse City Housing Initiative, or ARCHI, which we're calling it, has been established by the City of Adelaide in partnership with the state government. The aim is simple but powerful, is to directly support housing delivery through a new and additional mode of housing supply by converting vacant and underutilised buildings into homes. From a strategic perspective, the City of Adelaide has set a population growth target of 50,000 people living in the city by 2036. And to reach this goal, we need to deliver around 1,000 new dwellings per year over this timeframe. Achieving this level of growth in a sustainable, inclusive and livable way means we need to embrace diversity in housing options and invest in great neighbourhood design. We also need well-located homes in all shapes and sizes to suit people at different stages of their lives with different needs, incomes and expectations. And it's also become very clear that rental accommodation needs are not being met. And our housing strategy work has shown that 33% of low to moderate income households in the city are under rental stress. To us, this is not a statistic, it's a real signal that we need targeted practical interventions to support those who are being left behind in our housing system, and ARCHI is one of these interventions, and we're proud to say it's already making a difference. Through the program, we're aiming to support delivery of 50 adaptive reuse dwellings per year to contribute directly to housing supply, and also achieve some really other important benefits around activating our vacant buildings and streets, making our city safer and more vibrant, preserving our heritage assets to bring them back into use, and also reduce our carbon footprint by reusing what already exists rather than building new from scratch approach. ARCHI is also now firmly embedded in our broader planning and housing strategies, and it really reflects City of Adelaide's commitment to smart, sustainable and inclusive housing growth. So what is ARCHI? The idea of adaptive reuse as a housing solution was first formally put on the table in May 2023 during the Capital City Committee's Adaptive Reuse Forum. This forum brought together over 90 stakeholders, including CBD property owners, developers and builders, housing advocates and academics, and officers from across state governments. There may also be people in the room today that attended the forum. It was a powerful and collaborative discussion that helped highlight the real need for adaptive reuse to unlock underutilised spaces and deliver much needed housing in the heart of the city. Following the forum, ARCHI was launched as a 2-year project with state government support. And this funding enabled engagement of a dedicated project lead and allowed us to further investigate the practical barriers to adaptive reuse, look at policy planning and cost considerations, and also the opportunities to deliver more diverse housing through this model. One of the key barriers that emerged early on was the high cost of development and construction for adaptive reuse projects. And to directly address this, we also created the ARCHI incentive scheme with $250,000 of funding support from the state government. And this scheme provided financial and project assistance to eligible building owners to help de-risk and accelerate viable adaptive reuse projects. ARCHI's initial focus has been on shop-top scale buildings, so generally up to 4 stories in height. These smaller and less complex projects offered us the opportunity to deliver results more quickly, build a proof of concept for adaptive reuse, and also generate momentum for larger scale efforts in future stages of the program. Well, that doesn't really work, but so if you could read that, you'd see we've made some really fantastic progress in the first 18 months of ARCHI. We've been building the foundations for long-term success by really focusing on understanding the challenges and opportunities of adaptive reuse more clearly. We've completed a comprehensive audit of buildings across the city to help us map out the raw potential for adaptive reuse and identify properties with capacity for residential conversion, and really looked at key infrastructure and services considerations as well. We've looked at planning and building regs with a focus on identifying the barriers that might be slowing or preventing adaptive reuse, and also looking at ways to streamline and clarify the process where possible. We've aligned and strengthened council's existing incentives around sustainability and heritage to better support adaptive reuse, to help projects not only add housing but also preserve character and lower environmental impact. We've developed how-to guides and case studies to support building owners and developers and project teams that are interested in adaptive reuse. All of these actions are helping build knowledge, confidence and momentum, which is needed to support more adaptive reuse projects in the years ahead, just so it's ensuring it's not a one-off innovation but becomes mainstream as part of our city's housing strategy. So a cornerstone of the ARCHI program is the incentive scheme, which provides direct financial support to encourage and enable adaptive reuse projects across the city. We've recently expanded this scheme to include a wider range of building types. So now we're funding shop tops as well as heritage listed buildings, and also taller commercial to residential projects, so the office to resi projects. The funding can be used to cover both the upfront costs of professional services and advice and documentation, as well as construction works. Up to $75,000 is on offer per project, depending on the building type and scope. And just as important as the funding itself, we're providing a dedicated case management service at no charge to building owners to really help building owners ease the pathway through the process, which can be somewhat challenging if you're not familiar with the process. We've really found hands-on guidance through the regulatory steps and technical requirements makes a significant difference as to whether a project moves forward and how quickly it can progress. And adaptive reuse projects can also benefit from heritage grants, noise management funding and sustainability incentives to help reduce energy use and also reduce long-term operating costs for tenants. Taken together, these supports help de-risk adaptive reuse, unlock the buildings and ensure the projects go ahead that are well designed and energy efficient. A vital and I think rewarding part of the ARCHI program has been our ongoing engagement with the research sector. Just one piece of recent work has been a collaborative research project with a master's student from the Adelaide Graduate School who investigated city-based housing choices through a survey of preferences and needs. And in this piece of work, we surveyed 500 prospective residents to better understand what drives demand for city living, what trade-offs people are willing to make, and also how appealing adaptive reuse housing is and what features matters most. The research found affordability and location are the top priorities when choosing a home, which is a strong reflection of broader housing market pressures. Neighbourhood characteristics such as walkability, safety, access to transport rank just as highly and show the importance of context and community, not just the dwelling itself. And prospective residents are especially open to living in the city if their core needs are met, like space, quietness, community feel, providing outdoor areas and parking. Unfortunately, parking still comes up. While adaptive reuse properties were slightly preferred over new builds, they weren't a major driver to housing choice, but importantly, they weren't also a barrier. And this tells us there's a real potential provided we get the design and amenities right. So based on this research, several design and policy priorities emerged. So these include prioritising location to focus on walkable mixed-use neighbourhoods with access to public transport and active transport. Outdoor space matters to people, so we need to think carefully about how that's being delivered. Affordability, of course, is critical. Addressing parking needs remains to be important. Are there ways to provide low-cost accessible parking options to reduce this barrier of uptake? We also need to promote a city lifestyle to the broader community and design for families. We were quite surprised by the number of family units with a strong interest for city living. Beyond this, we're also actively contributing to national research on housing policy. We're participating in research with RMIT and AHURI, focusing on the role of local government in housing supply and also office to residential conversions. And we're also partnering with university students across a number of disciplines, from policy and geography to architecture, engineering and construction, to foster the next generation of housing thinkers and city makers. So outcomes so far, I just wanted to close to share a brief update on ARCHI's progress and what's ahead. So far we've identified 150 buildings across the city with potential for adaptive reuse, and this work is ongoing to continue to identify this potential. We've already funded 7 projects with 5 dwellings delivered and more on the way. There are 12 more projects currently in the pipeline, which are expected to deliver another 36 dwellings, and together these projects have the potential to provide around 100 beds. We've received 47 inquiries, and that number continues to grow as awareness and confidence in the ARCHI program increases. And in the midst of a housing crisis, this kind of progress, however incremental, is significant, and it shows that adaptive reuse is not just a good idea in theory, but a practical and scalable solution. A couple of just project examples as well. This project in Sturt Street delivered 3 new dwellings, which are now rental accommodation. This project converted 3 ground floor offices into studio apartments, and ARCHI funding was utilised for the construction works. This project in Saltram Place is a former warehouse being converted into 3 studio apartments, again as rental accommodation, and ARCHI is helping this project secure its development approval. And this project in Goodger Street is an example of how ARCHI can help reinstate a residential use. This building was converted into an office in the early 1980s, and it's a great example of how, by turning former dwellings back into homes, we can unlock housing supply that could suit families, as these buildings are typically retaining their kitchens and bathrooms and outdoor areas, which makes their conversion really easy. So where to next? I'm really pleased to share that just this week Council endorsed funding to continue the ARCHI program in partnership with the state government. This is a really major step forward for us and a clear sign that there's a strong commitment to adaptive reuse as part of our housing solution. So the next phase of the program is delivering adaptive reuse housing at scale. To achieve our targets of 50 dwellings per year, we really need to target the taller building stock. We'll continue to work closely with building owners, developers and industry, keep providing the ongoing case managed support, and provide targeted incentives to get more projects off the ground. We're working on upskilling and familiarising industry with the practicalities and benefits of adaptive reuse, building capability and confidence across the sector. We're continuing our research and knowledge sharing to apply new insights and strengthen the program and improve project outcomes. We're expanding our library of case studies and guidance material to inspire and inform future adaptive reuse efforts. We are improving energy efficiency of adaptive reuse projects through our Climate Smart Buildings program to make these homes climate ready, are comfortable and affordable for renters. And we're advocating, partnering and facilitating housing outcomes to align with our long-term housing strategy. Looking ahead as well, should Adelaide be successful in securing COP, we see this as an incredible opportunity to develop adaptive reuse legacy projects, showcasing South Australia as a national and global leader in innovative and sustainable housing solutions. And it's really interesting as well, the level of interest from other capital cities in ARCHI. Many of these cities facing the same pressures around vacancy, affordability and climate adaptation. So ARCHI is really proving to be a model and a catalyst for further growth. Adaptive reuse, I'd like to say, is not just about housing. It's about making better use of what we already have. It's about creating places that are inclusive and resilient and responsive and meeting the needs of our time. I'm really proud of how the program's developed and really thank everyone for the opportunity to share the successes to date and looking forward to also being able to share projects as they come through the system in the future. So